Why, hello there.
Hey, we are live.
We are on air. How's it going this morning, Charles?
It's pretty good, pretty good. I
Good.
almost wore the same thing you did. So I guess
Really?
good thing I
Matching
changed my
outfits.
mind.
Love it, love it. It's so we're both in the office today in separate offices, so
Yeah,
it's kind of like a change. We typically work from home, but it's so dark on your side. What's happening? Are you hiding
I don't know.
somewhere? It
Well,
looks like
it's
you're in a closet or something.
no, I've been out of the closet for a little while, but no, this is one of our focus rooms that has kind of a fake coffered background, so
Oh,
it's a
okay.
little dark indeed.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
at
yeah.
least I do have better lighting than
You've got good lighting.
I
Yeah, yeah,
did
yeah.
last time.
We can see you. We
Yeah,
can see you.
I
Most
could almost
most
wave
important.
to you, but no, I think you're in the other section
Yeah,
of
I'm
the
on the other
office.
side of the
Anyway,
office.
I'll see
Yeah.
you right after.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool. Yeah, we'll do a little debrief. So, yeah. So as people are joining in, I guess we'll get started slowly. First off, I want to welcome everyone and thank you for
Yes.
joining us today. We're really pleased to have you, and we're glad to be here. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time on the ShareGate on air, essentially what this is just basically us taking some time to interact with you. We want to share some news with you. We want to hear from you. We want to hear about your questions, whether they're ShareGate related or not. Happy to do our best to answer those questions for you. And yeah, if there's anything you want to say to us, please go ahead. Use the chat wherever you're listening from, because we are live on all kind of major social medias. So we are on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Did I say Twitter twice?
No, just
No,
once.
I've covered it. I got it. Okay, good. I got it. So make sure to follow us if you want to not miss the upcoming on-air episodes. And yeah, so that's basically why we're here, right? We want to
Yep.
talk with you, chat with you, answer your questions. But we do have something planned for today. Of course, we always have a little topic that we want to. That we want to tackle essentially. This is going to be like a main topic. Happy to move a little bit away from it if you've got some other questions. So please feel free.
Yep.
And yeah, so I know, Charles, in the last kind of like two episodes, we've been really kind of like nailing the reporting aspect of Microsoft 365, and today's no different. We're going in that same direction, but because obviously we think it's something that's really important, right? So
It
we
is.
wouldn't be talking about it three times in a row if we didn't think it was something important. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like, what's your take on reporting, and how important why do you think it's so important for Microsoft 365 users?
Well, I guess a few reasons, right? We hinted before that people used to do a lot of cleaning up and so on as they were doing the migration. But now that you are probably sticking to your Microsoft 365 environment, you're online. Well, you're not going to necessarily have another not opportunity, but another moment where you're going to be doing migrations and doing the cleanup. Therefore,
Yeah,
you want to be using reporting now to get the visibility needed to stay on top of things. So verify what's happening, how sites are evolving, what's growing, what are people doing, and also what are they sharing nowadays.
hmm,
Collaboration is a big part of working with SharePoint Online. It's, you might be using Teams or Microsoft 365 groups or just directly SharePoint, but you're still possibly adding guests, sharing with anonymous guest links, or just sharing links, generally speaking. And these are great, they're super useful, but they leave the door open for risks, let's say.
yeah,
And not everyone that's been ever invited to join a team or to see a document should keep this access. With reporting, you're able to see who's been given access, whether they're internal or external. You're able to see if security changes have been made. You're able to get a better understanding of what might be a potential risk. So you get visibility from reporting, and through ShareGate, well, you get even a bit more because you get actionability, I guess, from your reports, so that you can actually action what you're finding out if needed,
yeah,
and basically avoid those possible risks. So it's really a
yeah.
matter of visibility and control, I guess. I guess we could
Yeah,
sum it up
exactly.
this way.
Allowing you to sleep easy at night, right? Having that
Yeah.
visibility, and I think that's like what when you were talking like about that switch going from a more traditional kind of like SharePoint approach, and now going into Microsoft 365 and staying there. And I think and that's a really good point. And I think there's another aspect to that is it's a topic that we've been talking about for a while now, and that's the switch of mentality and going to this more kind of like self-service approach where
Yes.
people can create whatever they want because that's what users expect. You need to deliver this experience to users, right? They're used to that, and they're any other solutions they're using on a day-to-day basis, even their personal lives. We need to deliver that experience. But of course, so I mean, IT needs to have a certain kind of like needs to let go to a certain extent where
Right.
trust your users, but that doesn't mean you're completely taking your hands off the wheel and you're like
Right.
it's not a complete let go. There's still some work that needs to be done. There's still a certain amount of control that needs to be had. And Yeah, and that's where we think at least reporting plays a really important part, is that it really comes and balances it out, right? You're not just completely letting go, because after a while you might have some
Yeah,
issues
you
when it
might have a
comes
bit
to
of a headache later on. And
yeah.
I guess to add to your point, it's great. You want to leave the self-serve on. You want to give your end users the ability to create the resources they need, collaborate when they need. But even with the best intent, not everybody will follow those different governance rules that you have in place. Not everyone will
It'll never be perfect,
remember
right?
everything, and accidents will happen. So maybe something that's a bit more permissive than you would want will be allowed, and then through reporting you'll be able to find that out and course correct as needed.
Mhm.
So that's,
and
I
and
guess,
and that talks about security, and also like of course there's a whole sprawl aspect to it, right? Because
yes.
like people are not only sharing stuff, they're creating a lot of stuff. And there's so many different ways. I don't remember the exact amount. I think it was Gregory Zelfon who wrote a cool article on that, and it was like, I
Oh
know
yeah.
the number was ridiculous. It was like, here are the 27 different ways you can create a Microsoft 365
Yeah,
group.
I think it was
uh
16 or 19 different ways,
yeah,
because
it's
you're in
huge,
Outlook, you create a new group. You're in
right?
SharePoint, you create a new
Teams,
365
yeah,
group. You create a new Teams. You're in Yammer, you're in Power BI, you create something new. Oh, there's a
yeah.
365 group that was just created. I didn't even
And
realize,
users
but
don't know
then
that, right? Yeah, and
exactly,
it's
people
it's
don't
fine.
always realize.
They don't always like they don't necessarily need to understand exactly what's under the hood, right? They just need to get their job done. But yeah, it can create some challenges for sure. Cool.
Exactly.
All right. Well, now that we've shared our love and interest for reporting, I think now that that's kind of like out of the way, what are we going to be talking about today? Obviously reporting, but
Yeah.
like where are we going with this?
Well, a few things, right? We want to show or explain a little bit how you can kind of reduce the sprawl within your environment, get better organization, see and understand, I guess, the potential security risks that are in there, and prevent these things from happening while keeping your teams and your SharePoint environment, I guess, tidy. Might
Yeah,
be a
yeah.
good word, right? It's clean, it's secure, you don't need to worry about it. And that's really kind of the goal of what we were talking about today, reporting, and how you want to introduce that into your schedule on your day to day, so that you don't need to worry because you know these things are being looked at.
Exactly. So we wanted to approach reporting and help users kind of approach this in terms of and creating like a healthy reporting routine on what you need to do and when you need to do it, because there's a lot of stuff you can look into. You need to look at that stuff on a recurring basis. Are all reports equal? Look, how do you prioritize and how do you actually create that routine that you can actually lean into, and that will help you kind of yeah, sleep easy at night, knowing that you're doing your job correctly, and that you're doing what it takes to yeah, keep your environment optimized essentially for
Pretty
collaboration.
much. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we'll be talking about that, but before we go into that, we've got a few little ShareGate news while people are tuning in. We have the what happened. What was like the big things that happened? First, I think we had the webinar with Benjamin,
Exactly.
Thea, and Antoine. So Benjamin, head of product, with Thea, who is from our product marketing team,
Yep.
and Antoine, who is, I forget what his role is. I forget
Well, he's
exactly
a
what his role
PO
is.
for ShareGate.
Yeah, exactly. So
Which
he manages
portion
the whole.
specifically now?
I,
I can't
yeah, he
remember.
manages the SharePoint migration module, I believe. So, anyways, so they went
Yeah.
live and they talked about what happened recently in the product, but also giving a lot of visibility over where we're headed in terms of our roadmap. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff happening. Spoiler alert: there's a lot of stuff about visibility and reporting and insights. So. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff in there, and really making all that more even more powerful, even simpler and easier for users. I don't know, Charles. Like, did you have kind of like a specific? Is there something on the roadmap that has you especially
Well,
excited?
yeah, well, there's a lot that's coming that's very interesting because it's really meeting customer demands, customer requests that we've been receiving over the
Yeah,
years. I see that it was just posted in the chat, so don't hesitate to go and look it up. It's very interesting. You could watch the whole thing. You also have a recap on our blog if you're maybe a little in a rush, but you're still curious to find out. And yeah, there's a lot of roadmap items for what's left of 2022 that's been showcased in this event. And the one that I guess, a bit more excited about is the provisioning option that's coming up.
yeah,
We have, through our Teams management module, offered visibility on Teams and Microsoft 365 groups. And we've been receiving a lot of asks, a lot of requests from our customers to say, well, how can we get people to create teams the way we want to, without having to set up forms and flows
yeah.
and complicated requests where we want them to create it. We don't, but we want to guide them at the same way, at the
You want
same
to create
time.
those guardrails, right? You want to
Exactly.
allow them to keep going. You don't want to stop them. You don't want to put a checkpoint or
Yeah.
just like a,
You don't want to hinder the adoption. People don't
right.
want to wait to get help desk to create their teams. They want to
Yeah, yeah,
create a
yeah, no.
team now. And what's really interesting about the provisioning option that's going to be coming up is that you, as an administrator, will be able to set up a template and say, okay, these are the guardrails. These are the guidelines, I guess, of how you should be creating a team. Here's the
Yeah,
minimum number of owners you need to put in. Maybe one of the things that we saw a good reaction on was uh, by default on removing the wiki tab, because people don't really
yeah,
use the wiki tab in Teams. So a few things like that. So you'll be able to create the template, send it live, and then the users will be guided through. If I'm not mistaken, it might be through a Teams chatbot, or it might evolve into an actual application for Teams, not just the chat bot, and allow them to basically create a team and then follow these different steps, add the owners that you're requiring, add the different security settings that you're requiring, and then the team will be created already based on your different guidelines. And what's
yeah,
really interesting, it opens the door to, in I guess, including later on, the different options that you have in our Teams management module. And therefore, at creation, the users or the owners could actually apply right away those purpose or sensitivity tags that we offer that allow you to get a better understanding of why teams are created, and then sensitivity, how sensitive their content is, so that the right security settings are applied to the team. So this could be all done from the creation of a team directly through ShareGate. Well, I guess through ShareGate, through Teams, but basically where
yeah.
the owners are working, they don't need to go elsewhere. And that's why it's exciting, because it's also giving access a little bit to ShareGate to not just the administrators, but to the end users. And I guess that's a bit of
Right.
a segue to something else that's coming yet. You'll see in the webinar. It's an end user app that will let them do even more. This is coming up further down the line. Maybe well, look into the webinar. You'll get more specific details on
Yeah.
that, but
You're
it's
you're
really
spoiling
interesting.
it. You're spoiling everything. Now
Yeah,
everybody
sorry.
know.
I'm a little excited, I
No, but
guess.
I agree with you. Provisioning is huge, and I think like a lot of users have been asking for it because it's such an important piece of the puzzle, right? Because it really sets the pace for the whole life cycle of the teams, right?
Yeah,
Because like you mentioned, sensitivity label, like is it something that should be archived or not? If it's a it depends, right? So there's a lot of information. There's a good way to provision, and if you provision your teams correctly, then you're golden, right? It's gonna be easy to
yeah,
do that whole life cycle management. You're not just like fighting in the dark with a bunch of teams. You have no idea why they're there, and what's their purpose, and how sensitive the data in there is. So yeah, I think that's gonna be a huge part
yeah,
in
pretty much.
simplifying Microsoft Teams for our users.
Definitely.
All
And
right.
this is basically bringing reporting to a whole other level where you
Right.
get that visibility on over everything. And basically, our teams management is slowly becoming more of a Microsoft 365 management tool. It's going to help you
Yeah.
see your teams, your 365 groups. Spoiler, we're also giving you visibility soon enough on your communication sites within the management module. And therefore, it's going to slowly but surely become your Microsoft 365 management platform with well, maybe
Yeah.
not everything, but more and more stuff that allows you to make the most out of your 365 license, I guess,
All right.
or
Yeah,
environment.
definitely. Beautiful. All right. And one last thing before we get started, I think we want to dive deep. And I know there's some things you want to show us, Charles. We've got some really interesting stuff we want to share with you today. The other thing that we shared is our reporting guide. So if you are interested in reporting and you want to get started and yeah, really own that visibility and really get your hands back on the wheels of your environment. Go check it out. It's a very simple guide, actionable tips on how to get started. So highly recommend that. I believe we're going to share that in the chat. There it is. It just popped
Yes.
up. So yeah, go check it out, and yeah, let us know what you think. If there's some questions you have, we're always available, either here or just write to us on social media anytime. We always try to engage with you as much as possible. So before one last thing before we say before we move
Yep.
on, ask your questions in chat with
Of
us. I
course.
know I see we've got some people live with us right now. Don't be shy. Say hi. Tell us where you're from, where you're joining us from, and yeah, let's go. In terms of the routine, right? So we're talking about the routine that we want to help our users create, and we were talking, you and I, Charles, before this episode, and
Mhm.
basically two kind of main categories in which we separated the reports and why you want to run them, right?
Yep. First one is security.
Right.
We kind of hinted to it. There's a lot of sharing, there's a lot of information that's going on that moves maybe from one place to another, or that basically ends up being accessible to people in your organization, but maybe not in your department or within your same environment, and then externally. And again, this is great. It's fun. It's making collaboration much easier and avoiding sending stuff through email and then having multiple copies. You understand the value of these collaboration tools, but what you'll want to do is keep I guess a bit more tight schedule on the security reporting that you're going to be doing. We suggest weekly or maybe bi-weekly, depending obviously of your particular circumstances, I guess we could say. But three reports that we find should be run more frequently, let's just say. So maybe that weekly or bi-weekly schedule. We have consideration too for the external sharing report. You have something available in your Microsoft Administration Center. You could go on the site usage dashboard filter and get that information. But you also have an easier way to get that information directly from ShareGate. You have under either the reporting section under security, or if you navigate to the Explorer and find a specific site that you're maybe concerned about, you can run that external sharing report right then and there. It's going to give you a list of any object or item within the SharePoint site, or even at a broader level, that have been shared. So you would see that maybe a site collection has been shared through, with a person, a specific list or a library, or even specific items, and you get to see how they've been shared. So this gives you first a good visibility on anything that's been shared externally. It's available on the SharePoint reporting, meaning well, in the ShareGate reporting section, which means that you can actually get that report for pretty much anything within a SharePoint site. We are talking about teams earlier in 365 groups as well. Well, you get not necessarily a specific report, but an external sharing review policy that we call within the teams management module. And there, well, and whenever you look into a team, you could see right away all the links that have been shared externally. That's specific to files, though. And you even have something that we call our external sharing review that allows you to ask the owners to take a look at everything that's been shared, remove
Right.
them if they don't need to be there, or keep them if they still valid, so that this way you can mitigate any potential risks. So external sharing is something If you're looking at SharePoint, I guess you would run this weekly. Looking at the Teams management side of things, well, this is something you can automate. So maybe you want to take a look
Mhm.
weekly to see what people are doing, but you can have this done automatically and send reviews at the frequency you desire. So that's one important report. Another one is very similar, but it's actually about the users themselves. So it's the external users report. Same thing. There's a version that's available within your administration center for SharePoint, but ShareGate also has a version that you can run again from the reporting section under security. And this is going to give you a list of any external users within your SharePoint environment. Again, very useful, very important. We do collaborate a lot nowadays, and it's fine that you've invited people to a site or to see a document, but maybe they was very specific, time based, and it's for a project, and you don't need to keep them anymore. Having the visibility on who still remains as an external user within your sites is therefore quite important. And I guess same segue, I guess, the Teams management module, or I guess we should get the habit now of calling it just the management module since we're going to be giving more visibility to it. Well, you get a list of all the guests that have been added to any team or group. You can have the same review or similar review. Well, it's actually through the same review, have the owners take a look at all of these external users and keep them if they're still valid, or indeed remove them because, even the finest guests at some point need to leave your party. And well, kind of the same within your environment. It's great. We did a good job together. Our project is done. You don't need to have access to my team anymore. And then the owners could
Yeah.
decide to go about removing them. So external sharing, external users, and one more important report, still something that's available in SharePoint directly, but also in ShareGate. And it's always easier through ShareGate. You do a couple clicks and basically your
Yeah,
report
it's all the
runs.
same
And
place,
then
right?
exactly. So you don't need to connect to multiple places. You have all of your environments that are connected directly in ShareGate. So you can run an orphaned user report. That report basically will pull any user that's no longer active in your AD, so they're not in the Active Directory, they can't get to SharePoint, but SharePoint still shows that they have a permission there. So if you have a bit of an OCD, like possibly me, and you want to keep everything clean and make sure that even though this person can't get to SharePoint, they're not showing up anywhere as having permissions and not confusing anybody that might be looking for, doing a check permission on the site and seeing somebody that, hey, that person left the company like 6 months ago. How come are they showing there? Well, that's the reason. You can run an orphaned users report directly in ShareGate,
Yeah.
and mostly from the results, you can hit clean orphaned users.
Yeah,
This
actionable
will
reports. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly.
And
We keep
that
saying
you
it.
don't have access to in like what
No,
in the
exactly. So
Microsoft
one of
reports.
the
Yeah.
advantages of your subscription is that through this report, you'll be able to just remove them. So very simple. The report, and this is why you probably want to run this also on a weekly basis. You want to keep everything clean, make sure that there's no trace of a deactivated employee, theoretically an ex-employee, I guess, within your SharePoint environment. They're no longer part of the business. There's no reason why they would still be in your SharePoint environment. So
Cool.
yeah, those are the top three that
All
we
right. So
suggest would be a weekly report, and they're really based on security.
yeah. So quick recap. So we had what was the first? It was externally shared content,
Yeah. Well, it's actually external sharing. So it could
external
be,
sharing. Yeah, yeah.
well, I guess content is good because even if you see that a site has been shared with all the content within the site would be available to the person who it was shared with. So
Yeah.
yeah, external sharing report is the first one.
Then with external users,
Yeah,
and then orphaned users.
exactly.
And the two first ones, right? You run in ShareGate, more of like for SharePoint, but also like you mentioned, there's the whole kind of management module of ShareGate that helps automate the whole task. And one thing
Exactly.
I'd like to add also, I think that's important to include in those kind of like more frequent reviews that you're doing kind of like on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis is that when you're going to ShareGate, make sure that your all your teams and your groups have owners, right? Because if you're relying on those owners to help you, and we're going to fall into that also for sprawl, but like to do those reviews, well, you need to have owners that are assigned to those teams and groups, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
because the way ShareGate allows you to collaborate and get that information in our team's management or just management module once again is really that you get the visibility, you can take action, but you're probably not aware of everything that's been happening within everyone's team, especially as your environment grows.
Right.
2 3 years ago, when people were starting to launch teams, you had 5, 50, 100 teams. That remained manageable. But I've
Yeah.
been meeting with customers who mentioned, I have 15,000 teams. I have 40,000 teams. I was speaking with another company recently, a large cosmetic company everybody knows. They had 140,000 teams within their environment. And unfortunately, this is too much for ShareGate at this point. We wouldn't be able to help them out. But it was just a kind of a reality check that Teams has grown exponentially since
Yeah.
it was launched, and the more reason to be able to keep that under wraps and to collaborate with teams. Well, you want to collaborate with the owners. They're the ones who know what's happening within the teams that they're owners of, and therefore that's why it's really important that you look into orphan teams. You're able to see this at a glance when you connect to our teams management module. You have this under a tile, teams without owners, and from that you can actually add an owner in bulk to all of those orphan teams. If you maybe have
Mm.
you know a special account that you want to add to all teams to prevent them from being orphaned at some point, and it's an account that's only managed by IT, for instance. That's something I've heard customers do. Or you can just select a specific user, or even our recommendations. That's one of the cool things on the orphaned
Yeah.
users, orphaned teams report or tile from the management module, is that will tell you who are the top 3 active members of that team in the last 2 weeks. And this way, you have a good, be it a temporary replacement, but a good suggestion on who knows what's
Yeah.
happening in there because they've been using it.
Because that can be really problematic, right? And your company has 14,000 teams, knowing to who to appoint as an owner can be quite a challenge. Um,
Definitely.
cool. All right. So we've talked about security. We've talked about the important reports to run on that, making sure that you always have owners assigned to your teams and groups. Now let's talk about the second section of the reports that we want to be running and looking into on a weekly by weekly basis is the sprawl aspect.
Yes. We did mention that having self-serve on is great because people can create the resources they need, but that also means that sometimes, 2 people from the same team will create each of them a new team for their
Yeah.
new project and then realize, oh, well, we don't need two. Let's use this one. Well, then there's another one that stays there, clutters your environment, but it's unused. It doesn't need to be there. So what you'll want to do, and we suggest this monthly, is to check for inactive groups. There is something under site usage in SharePoint that will show you the inactive groups report. It's useful, but it's not really actionable. You don't have a way to automatically reach out to people to find out what to do with those groups that are inactive. So again, going back to ShareGate, you have the Teams management module, or once again, management module for the future, that will show you any team or group that did not have any activity in the last period of your choice. We have a default setting that's 90 days inactivity, but you could customize that to fit your needs. That's why we say, like, you should look into it monthly. Do you need to consider that a month is your inactivity threshold? Probably not, though that could be the well be the case for you. But at least monthly, you'd want to go back to our teams management module and look into, okay, what's become inactive? Have people answered my prompt? Because when your teams are inactive, you can automate a process that reaches out to the owners. That's why we were saying it's super important that you don't have orphan teams, because you want to know who to collaborate with. And our notifications go out to owners asking them, well, your team has been inactive for X amount of time. What should we do with it? Archive, keep, delete. This way, if it's actually to be used again, they can keep it. It's not going to do anything except reset that period to 0. And then we'll see X amount of time later on if we still need to ask what to do. But maybe they are going to realize, oh, well, I don't need the team anymore. Delete. Or, well, we don't use the team anymore, but there's important content in there. It can be
Right.
archived. So this is really how ShareGate helps you navigate and mitigate the sprawl by giving you that visibility, setting the custom recurrence or inactivity threshold that
Mhm.
you want. But mostly we suggest going at least once a month, so that you can see, because if people don't answer, you'll have unanswered notifications. So you can take action yourself, or you can decide to ask on demand to the owner, hey, I need you to answer this. What do we do with your team? So yeah, that's really where we can help with the sprawl. And even a bit further, if you're concerned with sprawl in SharePoint, or at least kind of trying to maintain your inventory and limit what is not being used, you can run a unused site report that's available as a built-in report directly in their ShareGate reporting. And this will look into SharePoint sites specifically to bring to your attention those that have not seen any modification, deletion, or maybe addition in the period. The default period is 6 months. Um, Customizable. Once again, you could decide that for you an unused site is maybe after a year. It could be after 30 days. That's a little short, but you do have the option. And this way, you're able to see, okay, all these sites are not being used, and then you'll actually even have options that you can download their content directly from the results of the report. And then even when you're done downloading content, you could go and delete the sites in bulk from the results of that report again. So everything is available and at your fingertips in ShareGate. No need to go to multiple administration centers to find out and then reach out other ways. You have the information pretty much in your report. So at least once a month is a good idea to find out
Yeah.
what's no longer used, and just keep tabs so that you remove as much data from the environment as you can, so that you limit the size of your environment, and it makes just easier. When everything is clean and you remove the clutter, well, people can really more easily find what they're looking for and do their best work within your environment because they're not struggling to get the information they need.
Yeah, no, definitely. Cool. Okay, perfect. So in the sprawl side, you want to be looking at the automated kind of review and uh, the automated review and kind of like archive from users to see what we can actually clean. You want to make sure again that you have owners assigned, right? Because if you have no owners, no one can review. Make sure you've got that. People who don't answer or owners who do not answer to those, you want to make sure that you can ask them again so that they or ask them on demand so that they can yeah, essentially to take action.
Yeah.
And last but not least is the unused sites reports that doesn't necessarily tie into
Well,
Teams, but really focuses on SharePoint.
exactly, because the reality is more and more people are moving over to Microsoft 365 and using the 365 groups or teams, but there's still some, I wouldn't call them legacy sites, but sort of,
Yeah,
that are preserved maybe as classic sites within your SharePoint environment for whatever reason, but they're still there, and people might still work within SharePoint specifically. And as I
they've
was
been
saying,
for
we're gonna.
years, right? Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And change management doesn't happen overnight. Not everybody is now using Teams the best way and let go of everything else they used to do. And therefore, this is also going to be useful because SharePoint still exists. So you want to get that visibility, and you get it using ShareGate quite
perfect.
easily.
So we're already over time. One
Yeah,
last
I know.
question I want to ask you. Now that people have kind of like mastered this kind of ongoing kind of like short term
Yeah,
routine or review
routine.
process. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
call it routine. What do you think would be the next step for them? Like, what's the next thing? What should they look into after that?
Well, you have that weekly schedule we talked about, and then what should be done monthly. I guess the next logical step is to go quarterly, and that's something that you're possibly familiar with. We discussed it yesterday. I was talking where I used to work at a bank. There's a lot more red tape and everything, and access revalidation was something very important, which was done quarterly. So we mentioned in a previous one, the mother of all reports would be our permissions matrix report, at least because that's where you get the details on all the permissions within your SharePoint sites. Well, you probably want to run this quarterly. Make sure that maybe you can delegate or send a copy of this report to the site collection admins or the site owners and let them review all the permissions from their sites so they can validate if it's still correct or if some people should be removed or permissions removed, which can be done afterwards by using our add, remove, or copy user permissions, by the way. So that's definitely something you'll want to consider quarterly. Same thing as an audit report. Now, this is something where ShareGate can help but not as much as we want to. You're possibly familiar with SharePoint's audit logs. If you still
Mhm.
have on-premises environment, you can actually get your audit logs from ShareGate. Going through reporting, go to audit log, and basically ShareGate sends a request to SharePoint to run the audit report that SharePoint provides, but we reinterpret it and bring it to your attention to, I guess, to surface with something that's much more comprehensible, something that you can make sense of. Because if you've ever consulted an actual audit log from SharePoint, it's not 100% clear what everything means and what do they do. But when you get that version in ShareGate, well, you really have a user-friendly way of understanding what's in that audit report. Now, for Microsoft 365, we are not able to get that because I think it's already been 3 or 4 years ago that Microsoft moved the SharePoint audit report, or changed it in favor of the unified audit logs that you have in your security and compliance center. And
Mhm.
ShareGate is not able to really get that information out of there from the methods that we have been using. You still probably want to go and look at your unified audit logs. That's where you're going to find them in your tenant administration center, to still have visibility on different events that happen within the environment. So it's either permissions changing, items being created, deleted, modifications to sites, that kind of information. So it's still important to keep an audit trace of what's happening within your environment. But this is not something you probably, it's not something you want to run weekly or monthly, but quarterly is probably a good average. You're going to run that 4 times a year. It's a good way to validate. As I was saying, we did this quarterly at a previous job where I was at, and is, I guess, had we had ShareGate there, it probably would have been much easier to
Yeah.
understand what was in the audit logs and which accesses we had to look into to then validate who needed to be kept or removed. Um, so yeah, quarterly permissions matrix report, and find your audit logs either in your Microsoft 365 Security and Compliance Center or through ShareGate if you have an on-prem environment that you can run your audit report from directly.
All right. Beautiful. Great, perfect. So I think that kind of like covers it. I think it is a good job of covering the routine and differentiating what you want to be doing on a more recurring basis and on a longer term, quarterly or maybe 2 times a year, depending on the nature of your business. But so yeah, we hope that that was insightful. If you want to go try the tool, if you don't have it right now, of course, it's available for free on a trial version on our website, so you can go try it out. If you're a ShareGate customer, all of those, everything that we mentioned, the functionalities that we mentioned are available to you already. So if you want to go and get started, it's right there available for you. If you're a little bit overwhelmed, not sure, we've got a bunch of documentation. We've got our support team that's there. Of course, there's Charles as well that hosts the Ask the Experts, so he can
Yeah.
help you get started. Um, so yeah, anything else wanted to add, Charles?
Well, I'll do a bit of a shameless plug. We do have As the Experts, where I'm part of, which I'm part of. But mostly, if you want to see a bit of a more hands-on demo of reporting, next Wednesday at 11, I am hosting, along with my colleague of customer success, a reporting webinar, Beyond Migration Reporting with ShareGate, where we're going to give you a bit, again, a bit of more of a hands-on demo of, okay, this is the report, this is the results, these are the actions you can take from the results. And we're going to talk about how to build and maintain your SharePoint inventory, how to review those external sharing links we were talking about earlier, and how to just go about using custom reports, because there's an option, custom reports, but we just want to give a bit more context on what you can get, what kind of logic you want to use, how to best basically use those custom reports to your advantage and get the information you specifically need. And yeah, I see that we just shared the link, so you should be able to go and register. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, wonderful. So we'll let you all go have lunch. We've been a little bit over time, but we had a lot of stuff to cover. We hope it was insightful. If there are any other topics you would like us to cover in future ShareGate on Air episodes or in any other types of content, of course, write to us. We want to learn, and we're very curious in terms of what interests you and what challenges you're facing right now. So please go ahead. That is super relevant for us as we are always trying to find new ways to help our audience and customers. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Thank you, Charles, for sharing all your valuable insight, and we will see you all very soon.
Yes. Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
thank you.
Have
Bye.
a good day.